A mysterious ancient artifact that laid at the bottom of the Mediterranean Sea for 2000 years and took experts decades to unravel its purpose. Over 14 centuries will pass after it's been made until we know of a similar gear-driven mechanism to exist. It was discovered over 120 years ago, but we still don't know who used it. We don't even know where it was actually made, and why is there only one, considering how advanced and unique it is. Of course, we are talking about Antikythera mechanism, the oldest analog computer known to exist. There are so many unanswered questions about Antikythera mechanism to this day, but some most puzzling ones have been answered. For example, for 50 years since its discovery, we didn't even recognize its significance, since it resembled a meaningless lump of metal, more than actually a first world's computer. Only in 1951, the Antikythera mechanism was subjected to an X-ray examination by physicist Derek J. de Sola Price. This revealed that the mechanism had at least 30 gears and was much more than met the eye at first. Despite all these intriguing facts, you could still ask yourself, why is this mechanism so important? You know why? Because there is a gap of over 14 centuries until next similar mechanisms were made. So that is the answer to why. The answer to who made it, we still don't know. Although I will shed some light onto the most plausible explanation, so stick with me as we go through the turbulent history of the one and only Antikythera mechanism known to us. But let's start from the beginning, as it is quite a journey to be told. A cargo ship wreckage rested on the seabed near Greek island Antikythera for 19 centuries, until being accidentally discovered by sponge divers in 1901. The ship was Roman, and at 27 meters long was one of the biggest vessels of its time. The Antikythera shipwreck was the richest ancient sunken ship ever discovered. Hundreds and hundreds of interesting objects were brought to surface at that first expedition. A life-size bronze statue of an athlete, 36 marble statues of mythological heroes and gods, fragments of many other bronze sculptures, scores of opulent objects. The skeletal remains of crew members and passengers were also among the discovered items. First exploration caused the death of one diver and paralyzed two more, as the wreckage was at a depth of 45 meters. The mechanism was found in one piece, but started breaking down as soon as it reached the surface, first into 3 fragments, while today it is divided into 82 pieces due to handling, cleaning and other conservation efforts. But that is only a third of the original device. The rest has never been found, despite numerous expeditions throughout the decades, including 2 by famous undersea explorer Jacques Cousteau. The Antikythera wreck dates to approximately 70 to 60 BC, while the Antikythera mechanism, according to last estimates, dates around 205 BC. In 2022, researchers proposed that initial calibration date, not the construction date, could have been 23rd of December 178 BC. Don't ask me how they came to such a specific date. Spiridon Stais, Minister of Ecclesiastical and Public Education of Greece, was the government official who approved the first underwater archaeological expedition to ever take place in the world, the Antikythera wreck in 1902. Spiridon Stais was also first to take interest in 3 bronze pieces as he noticed system of cogs and faint writings on one of the fragments. This was a significant discovery which he expressed to his cousin, archaeologist Valerius Stais, who became the first specialist to examine them. He concluded it was some sort of astronomical clock, which in the end turned out to be correct. Despite all these findings, fragments of the Antikythera mechanism were discarded as a coincidental finding at the wreck site, due to the fact that such gears were unknown until 14th century. It was assumed at the time that it belonged to a different cargo that may have sunk centuries later at the same place. So it was sitting there in the museum for almost 50 years, until it came to attention of a brilliant British science historian and future Yale University professor Derek J. de Sola Price in 1951. Professor Price noticed the engravings on the largest fragment resemble calendar symbols that could date before the 1st century BC. In 1951, Price described the mechanism as an intriguing, surprising, and little-studied artifact that demonstrated that the Western tradition of clock design originated in classical antiquity. He applied for fragments to be brought to London for better conservation and research in the British Museum, but the request was refused by the Greek government. So that was a complete stop at the time. But Professor Price was determined. In 1958, Price was in the USA, and he applied for a grant to travel to Athens during August 1958. Although he was not the first scholar to examine the mechanism, he had considerably more experience with early scientific instrumentation than his predecessors. Contrary to others that preceded him and were quite pessimistic in the state of the mechanism, he observed that most of the pieces are very nearly in their original places, and that we have much larger fraction of the complete device that had been thought. He solved the problem of where the 3 main fragments A, B, and C were located within the mechanism. Here's the way Price devised the strategy to unlock the secrets of the Antikythera mechanism. There are 4 ways of getting at the answer. First, if we knew the details of the mechanism, we should know what it did. Second, if we could read the dials, we could tell what they showed. Third, if we could understand these inscriptions, they might tell us about the mechanism. Fourth, if we knew of any similar mechanism, analogies might be helpful. All of these approaches must be used, for none of them is complete. In his 1959 article in Scientific American titled An Ancient Greek Computer, Price wrote, "Nothing like this instrument is preserved elsewhere. Nothing comparable to it is known from any ancient scientific text or literary allusion. On the contrary, from all that we know of science and technology in the Hellenistic age, we should have felt that such a device could not exist. We know now, from the fragments in the National Museum, that the Greeks did make such mechanisms, but the knowledge is so unexpected that some scholars at first thought that the fragments must belong to some more modern device. Of course, he couldn't penetrate below the surface, so all his assumptions were based solely on the visible gears on the outside of the fragments. Still, he didn't stop there, and in 1971, Price commissioned X-ray and gamma-ray images of the mechanism. He worked with Greek radiologists, Charalampos Karakalos, and they were able to count the teeth to much higher precision than Price's initial findings in 1958. We started to understand that the Antikythera mechanism was in fact an astronomical calculating device. It calculates repeating astronomical cycles. Price finding confirmation for moon cycle in the actual gearing was a major step forward in understanding the mechanism. In most other aspects, Price's model was wrong, which is understandable, as it was very hard to distinguish different gears' positions in 2D scans that were only available to him. Next step in understanding the Antikythera mechanism better were high-resolution 3D X-ray studies, when they became available through techniques co-invented by Hewlett-Packard. It took 5 years to get necessary permissions from the Greek authority for the new study in 2005. An 8-ton X-ray machine was transported from UK to Greece for this purpose. The machine was actually a prototype built especially for this project by a UK company called X-Tech Systems. Looking at the surface of the fragments, team led by Mike Edmonds and Tony Threath make significant new discoveries. They spent weeks examining all 82 fragments. One of the first discoveries was that it predicts eclipses based on Babylonian eclipse prediction cycle. Also, by Mr. Threath's own words, one of the most astonishing things discovered about the mechanism is that it calculated variable motion of the moon through zodiac. Which brings us to the conclusion that famous science fiction writer Arthur C. Clarke had about the Antikythera mechanism in 1975, claiming, "If the insight of the Greeks had matched their ingenuity, we would not merely be puttering around the moon, we would have reached the nearest stars." Initially, scientists assumed the device was made in the eastern Mediterranean region, like other items discovered at the wreck site. However, the names of the months that were engraved were Corinthian in origin, suggesting that the mechanism originated in Sicily or Corfu, which are in the northwest Greece. Today, we have many contradicting theories why technology has not developed quicker, following the knowledge of the Antikythera mechanism. The mechanical watches, which are logical extension of the Antikythera mechanism, were only first found in 13th century, and mathematical calculating machines in 17th century by Blaise Pascal. These mechanisms are not more complicated than the Antikythera mechanism, but often much simpler. What took so long? Where was this knowledge lost in time? What was the purpose of the Antikythera mechanism? What was it actually used for? Was it an expensive toy for a rich Greek or Roman noble, or maybe a demonstration device for a scientist? Mr. Fried shed some light at what might be the purpose of the Antikythera mechanism when he said that if we look at the theories of the variable motion of the moon and the theories of the variable motion of the planets, trigonometry is needed to make those calculations. There were only 5 planets that the ancients were aware of at that time: Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. At Hellenistic time, trigonometry was developed, but it would take a lot of time and calculation if you would want to display astronomical positions of one of the planets in, say, 6 months' time. But with the Antikythera mechanism, you would just turn the handle to the wanted date and it would instantly show the position. That might have been the primary purpose of the Antikythera mechanism by Mr. Fried. To do trigonometry, as you could predict precisions without any mathematical calculations for almost 19 years in advance. Oh, and it might also been used to set the dates for the first Olympic Games. A mechanical calendar's intricate calculations and artistry are only one aspect of the mechanism's ultimate genius. For instance, the ancient Greeks were unaware of the moon's and planets' elliptical orbit and thought sun and planets orbit the Earth in circle patterns, since in reality planets orbit the sun, and in elliptical manner. Seen from the Earth, they occasionally slowed or accelerated as they passed through the zodiac. The inventor of the mechanism imitated this apparent changing in the moon's and planets' movement by using epicyclic gears, commonly referred to as planetary gears, with a pin and slot mechanism. This application of epicyclic gears is significantly more advanced than anyone had thought ancient technology could be. It is believed now that all of the functions and abilities of the Antikythera mechanism are known to us through its 57 gears. But there is also a belief that there were additional, never recovered parts of the mechanism destroyed through time in the salty seawater. Who constructed the Antikythera mechanism is still a mystery. A Roman statesman and philosopher Cicero, in his writings, have connected it to the famous Greek inventor Archimedes. Yet the Antikythera mechanism was constructed after Archimedes' passing. It is still believed that it might have been based on Archimedean design and may have even been constructed by a workshop that continued his technological legacy. Another theory suggests that the device itself was probably made in Alexandria under the patronage of the Ptolemies. There are several modern replicas of the Antikythera mechanism. In 2022, Western Australian engineer Dr. Nick Andronis presented a very precise replica. It took him 5 years to complete. He had interesting observation. It could have been part of an entrepreneurial exercise, making money selling a fancy instrument to the wealthy. Had it been a true scientific instrument, it would have been 10 times the size and the gears would have been less likely to seize or break. I'll put a link to his YouTube channel in the description. Another notable mechanism replica is by very talented mechanist Christopher Ferguson, who created the device using tools from that age. A very interesting series of videos on his channel ClickSpring. A link to his YouTube channel below. Another beautiful replica of the mechanism was done by Spencer Connor, for whom on his website is written that he is working in the aerospace industry as a mechanical engineer, with education in mechanical and aerospace system engineering. So you can check out his build, full of intricate engineering details and explanations. Link in the description. From popular culture, might be worth mentioning that the plot of the 2023 movie Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny centers on a fictionalized version of the machine, which is also known as Archimedes' Dial or the Dial of Destiny. And finally, it is worth mentioning that 10 times scale model of the mechanism was constructed, set up, and officially opened at the University of Sonora in Hermosillo, Sonora, Mexico, on February 8, 2024. It has been named Hermosillo's monumental Antikythera mechanism. Link to the video below. I would like to finish this video with a quote by Derek J. de Sola Price at the end of his 1959 Scientific American article, An Ancient Greek Computer. He wrote, "It is a bit frightening to know that just before the fall of their great civilization, the ancient Greeks had come so close to our age, not only in their thought, but also in their scientific technology." Thank you for watching.